Hey everybody, welcome. So glad to see you today. I got a question for you. How often do you connect with your guides? Like when you have questions or you're in doubt about something or you're uncertain about something or you're fearful about something, some circumstance that's going on in your life, do you turn to your guides? Now, the reason I'm asking this question is because it is the best place, the really, in my mind, only place that we're really going to get the answers we're looking for. And yet, so many of us are not tuned in to our guides. Or if we are, we forget. And we're not asking them the important questions, the questions that are driving us crazy. And we start to look outside of ourselves. We start to look in the outer world for answers, and oftentimes we're taken on a wild goose chase instead of getting the answers we want. I'm an extremely strong believer in connecting with our guides because at a very young age, I connected with my guides, and had I not, I don't think I'd be here today. Let me just take a quick minute and explain what I'm talking about. I happen to have grown up in a very abusive, verbally, emotionally abusive household. And it started at a very young age, kind of from the time I could understand what somebody was saying to me. Mostly it was my mother, and my father sometimes would join in on the ridiculing of me, but the actual really aggressive abuse came from my mother. And I think, there's all kinds of levels of emotional abuse. Mine happened to be at the high end of the stick. So what would happen on an absolutely daily basis, my mother was relentless in her criticizing of me. It could be from a simple thing like one sock was a little lower than the other sock, to that I was stupid, to why wasn't I like the other kids, to why was I shy, to I was ugly, to I did nothing right. And it was literally relentless. It really was. And it happened every single day of the 18 years that I lived in that house. So obviously had a big impact on me, and I'll be talking in more videos about how that can impact a person. And so if that is your background, where you've had emotional abuse, we'll talk more about that down the road. But it's what I want to talk to you about today is how I found my guides. I'm not even sure exactly how I found them, but it was literally the way I survived. So when I would go to bed at night, the door to my bedroom was an old-fashioned door, and it had a keyhole in it. And when I was lying down in bed, I could see that keyhole. And somehow, I don't know how this happened, but I started a ritual every night in talking to this keyhole, not verbally out loud, but through my mind. And every night, I would tell this keyhole about all the bad things that my mother had said to me. And I would also say to this keyhole, I don't want to be who she says I am. I don't want to grow up and be exactly what she says I'm going to be. And my keyhole would talk back to me. There was a voice in the keyhole, and it would say, again through my mind, not out loud, no, you're not who they say you are. You're absolutely not who she says you are, or your father says you are. You're perfect the way you are, and you do not have to listen or believe in what they're saying, and I will always be here to protect you. Now, as later I discovered that this was really my guardian angel that's been with me my entire life. Without that interaction, because the verbal abuse was so aggressive, I don't know how I would have survived. So yes, I am a major believer that our guides are here to help us, to protect us, to guide us in the right directions. So I have been always a person that has used my guides, and it's paid off in so many ways. I mean, throughout my life, whenever I've had really serious problems, circumstances that I just didn't know what to do with, or I didn't know which direction to go, left or right, my guides have never let me down. Now, I have gone through times where I think through distractions of things or through just life circumstances, I would forget to tune in. I would get off in my ego mind and I'd start looking for answers in all the wrong places. So I also know what happens then. But I would eventually come back to asking my guides. Now, the truth is, when we're working with our guides, we have to know, or we have to begin to get in a kind of neutral zone to really hear what they're saying. Because if we're kind of in a place where we really want a certain thing to happen, or we're wanting it to go a certain way, we can not quite hear what our guides are saying, and we may interpret what they're saying in a wrong way. But the more we practice, it's like developing a muscle, so that we begin to really be able to get in that place where we're in that neutral place where we're really asking for help. And through different ways, our guides will help us. It isn't always completely direct. It isn't in the moment that you ask, you get the answer. We have to learn to be looking for clues. Clues can come in so many ways. I mean, you've heard the stories. Sometimes people have been in a bookstore and a certain book falls into their hands, and that book ends up being an answer to a problem they're having. It can be through anything from seeing something online, something on Facebook, to a friend saying something to you, or to you wake up with one morning and it's kind of, I call it a download, and you all of a sudden are very clear on what direction to take. So that's the other piece, is we need to have patience when we're working with our guides. And sometimes, not everything's in place. So we have to wait for whatever it is we're trying to make happen, or trying to ask our guides for help. It takes some time for them to kind of get the things in place so the results can come. So maybe the question then comes up, well, I don't hear my guides, and I don't know how to find them. I've heard that from many, many people that I work with. Like, I try to hear my guides, but I just never hear anything. Or even when I'm meditating, I try to ask for my guides to come in, but I don't think I have any guides. So, first of all, we all have guides. Believe me, we all have our guides. It's part of the deal. When we drop into this human form, I've talked many times before, we've got that crew, I like to call it, that is on the other side, that didn't come into form, but they're absolutely our cheerleaders. They're working with us the entire time we're here, so we're never, ever alone. But the ego mind, which is, as we know, a very strong part of us, can block out that part of can block out us hearing our guides. Now, because when we drop into human form, as we've talked many times before, we have amnesia. We completely forget that we're actually came from the the formless world, and we forget that we even have these guides. So that happens as well. But that doesn't mean we don't have them, and that doesn't mean we can't tune into them. So how can you begin to tune into your guides and start to get the answers and the guidance that you can get nowhere else except with your guides? Well, it always comes down to practice. It's like developing a muscle. You have to start to learn how to navigate through that world of our guides. When meditating, definitely that opens up a portal to be able to talk with your guides. You need to use your imagination during this time as well. It's very, very helpful. So when I say use your imagination, I mean that you start to open up when you're in meditation, if you'll ground yourself in your body, because we leave our body so many times, but you need to be grounded in the body. And then you open up the crown chakra and you relax and breathe into it, and you start to ask for your guides to appear. Now, they don't appear in human form. They appear different for everybody, but it can be, for me, it's, there's an energy that comes in, and I kind of see a formless form. I don't know how else to say it, but kind of a light. But it's more of a feeling that they're there. And you begin to feel a sense of something being present. But even before you do that, again, like I said, it's important we use our imagination and all this. So before you actually can start to see or feel, start to ask for help. Tell this guide, or your guides, what's going on. Where you're confused, or maybe you're feeling hopeless, helpless, uncertain about things. All you have to do is literally within your mind start to tell the guides what's going on. Just like I did as a little girl looking through that keyhole, was saying all the things, was telling my guides all the bad things that my mother had said to me that day, and also saying I didn't want to be who they said I was. I know as a little kid, I didn't even believe completely what they said was true, but if it was, I was really not wanting to be that. And so that basically was what I was telling my guides. And thank God at that time that it was pretty direct, right? The voice in the keyhole was pretty direct. It probably had to be that way for me as a little girl. I think as time went on, it was sometimes a little more indirect, and certainly as I became into adulthood, more guides came in, and I learned to listen, hear, feel them in a more indirect way sometimes, I guess just in a more mature way. So what I'm saying is you don't always get the direct answer. And like I was saying before, sometimes it takes time because things have to be put in place for what you're asking to be manifested, or asking for help in a particular decision. So the key is not to get frustrated or think, I don't have guides because I asked and I hear nothing. You just have to keep asking, and you are going to hear. They're answering. They're talking to us all day long, all night long. They are talking to us. So it's not like they've disappeared. It's like we're just not hearing them. It's like, you know, when you're tuning the radio into a particular station, how it can be fuzzy or not clear. That's what we're doing. We're kind of tuning in to our guide's particular station so that we can actually really hear and get what they're talking about. There is literally nothing that your guides can't help you with. Anything and everything they're there for. And the more that you can get in touch and the more that you begin to experience the benefit of asking your guides and getting the help that you're looking for, the more confidence you have and the more clear you can be that when a problem comes up, rather than following the ego that's trying to fix things and has all the fear of the problem and all the issues going on, you'll learn to tune in to that guide. I know for me, again, in growing up in such a verbally abusive environment, my God, that had I not had that connection with the guide, like I said, I have no idea what would have happened. And for any of you, and I think there's a lot of us that have grown up in verbally abusive or emotionally abusive homes, and like I said, they vary in how abusive. You know that feeling as a kid when you feel there's no safe place. There's nowhere to land. I mean, I felt so alone in all that, and very afraid as a child. And but that's not even so different as when we're off now in the ego, where we can get very frightened over some future thing that we think is going to happen, or dragging the past to our now moments. It's the same feeling as a kid. It's the same feeling as being hopeless or helpless or victimized. And that's the best times in the world to tune into our guides. But the thing that can happen is if we haven't been trying to tune into them, if we haven't been in the practice of talking to our guides, then during those very difficult times, we may not be hearing what they're telling us. So I think that's my message today, is really simple in a way, but hugely important as we're going through life and struggling through different difficulties, and wondering how to make things happen or not happen, etc. I can only encourage you to start to listen to the guides. So when you're sitting down in meditation, or sitting down to just be quiet for a time, use your imagination. Start to imagine that your guides are with you right now, whether you're feeling them or not, and start talking to them, and stay neutral. Just because you're talking to them, don't expect them to answer right away. They may be, and you're just not hearing them, right? So you want to have patience, but you want to do this on a daily basis. The other thing is don't wait until you have such a difficult situation, or you're in a very threatening situation. Don't wait till it's out of control almost, because then your mindset and the ego has taken over. So you probably aren't going to get any help that way. So start with the small things, little things like, I don't know, maybe you have a question about a relationship, a friend that you're not sure if that friend is on your side, so to speak, or, it could be about maybe a job that you're considering. It could be about anything that comes up during the day that you're questioning. About a vacation, about should I go here, should I go there? I mean, all day long we have stuff that comes up, right? That's when you want to tune in to your guides for whatever, even small things are coming up. Should I move? Is this, I'm feeling like maybe I think I should move now to a different house, a different city, a different state. Ask our guides. That's how it works. So we start out slowly so that we're ready for the big stuff. When it comes on, we know our guides are going to be there. Okay, I hope this has helped someone out there. And I hope that you'll start really taking baby steps to learn to start to listen to your guides. And as you do that, you'll actually discover who they are. And you will begin to consider them your go-to every time you have a problem. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for being here. If you like this video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. And then there's a little bell next to the subscribe button. And if you click on that, then you'll be alerted to the next time a video is coming up. Again, thanks so much for being here, and take care.